Under the Sea. The Little Mermaid is a 2023 film that tells the story of when a mermaid's curiosity leads her on a fantastical adventure throughout the human world. And for those who did not know, this is a live-action adaptation of the 1989 film of the same name. As many, I grew up with the 1989 animated classic, and when I first heard the announcement of this film, I was convinced that this was one Disney classic that actually deserved a live-action retelling due to its partial underwater setting and all the things that they could do visually to enhance and express that story in a live-action setting. So with that in mind, let's jump right into the positives. The first positive I have is the overall cast. Aside from one performance, all of these actors bring something unique and new to these characters, and even with jokes and dialogue that's recycled from the first film, the actors say it and deliver their lines in such a way that it feels fresh and new, and like we're really hearing it for the first time, rather than trying to mimic what the original voice actors did in that original film. It's an aspect that I really appreciated, given the fact that these actors had the room to do their own things with these characters. And along with the cast, the characters in this film are given so much more depth that we really have a better understanding of these characters and the relationships that they have with one another. One primary example of this is the relationship between Prince Eric and Ariel, and how in this version their interest and really their overall passions mirror each other perfectly. Ariel is fascinated, yet forbidden from learning more and seeking out and exploring the human world, while Eric is fascinated by the oceans and the unknown waters, yet is forbidden from exploring them. And I appreciated this element because it made their relationship feel so much more authentic rather than forced. And even more with the character of Ariel, she's given a lot more to do in the battle against and the defeat of Ursula. And the best way I can express this is the fact that she's fighting her own battle. She's not saved by a prince. She's putting up her own fight. And I appreciate this element. It works so well because the film does not draw attention to it.
Whoa, whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
And even in the case with the racial and ethnically diverse cast, it does not draw attention to it. And by doing this, it made it feel so much more impactful and so much more authentic, rather than it being a cheap gimmick or a marketing tactic to get people to go see the movie. Now, my final positive with this movie is the incorporation of classical mermaid lore. And I appreciate this for two reasons. The first reason because it gave an interesting dynamic between the humans and the mermaids, given the fact that in this story they both despise each other, versus the original film where that conflict was more one-sided with King Triton hating all humans. So it created a sort of a Romeo and Juliet element to the film, given the fact that these two worlds are forbidden to be with one another. And the second reason why I appreciate this aspect is because it made sense of small details that are in the original film. The biggest example I can give of this is the taking of Ariel's voice. In classic mermaid lore, a mermaid's voice is essential to them being a mermaid. So when Ursula offers to take away Ariel's mermaid abilities to give her a human life, her voice is part of the package. So I made the decision to take her voice feel less random and more reasonable overall. Now moving on to the mixed aspects, and for this I only have two. The first one being the CGI that is used in the film for the underwater sequences. And the reason why I'm mixed on it is because throughout the film it is very noticeable, especially when it's on the faces of the characters or hair movement or small details like that. However, the CGI used in the film for the underwater sequences created this odd and fantastical feeling for the underwater world that felt odd but beautiful at the same time. Now my second mixed aspect, and that's the performance by Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. Out of all the cast that were in this film, I was most curious to see what she would do with this classic and iconic character. And the reason why she's in my mixed category is because, as mentioned earlier, a majority of the cast bring their own flair to their performances and not trying to replicate what the other actors did, except Melissa McCarthy. For a majority of the film, it felt like she was trying to emulate the same type of energy, voice, and mannerisms as the 1989 animated film. And sadly, in my opinion, it hurts the film in a way, because if I want to see that performance, I'll go watch that movie in a way. And there were small parts here and there where Melissa McCarthy's natural comedic timing kicked in, and different jokes and stuff like that that were unique to her and to her adaptation of this character, that were honestly my favorite moments of her performance. But the parts where she's saying verbatim everything that Ursula said in the original film, in the exact same tone, in the exact same way, in the exact same voice, it felt like mimicking rather than acting. I don't know if that was a choice by her or if she was not really given that much freedom to make the character her own, I guess. But sadly, it just didn't work for me a majority of the time. Now moving on to the negatives, and for this I only have one, and that is the first third of this movie. So when the film started, I started to get worried because the first third of this film goes practically beat for beat as the animated movie. Down to almost every aspect you can think of, it's the same. To the point that I was worried I was going to hate the next hour and a half that I had to sit in the theater. I felt that there was more they could have changed and experimented a little bit, similar to what they did in the later parts of the movie. However, it's mostly distracting because it's the same exact thing as the 1989 film. But overall, I enjoyed this movie. I'm happy to say that it did a lot of things differently and did not fall into the same trap of just doing the same thing as the original film.
Do the same thing as last time. Everyone's happy.
So if you haven't seen it yet, by all means, I recommend this movie, and I will firmly say this is one of the better Disney live-action remakes. So as always, I thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this new movie, what you liked, what you didn't like, and how it compares to the 1989 film in your opinion. I thank you very much for your time, and God bless.